Oksana is grateful for the temporary shelter for Ukrainians at the U.S.-Mexico border where she's staying, but that clearly has not been everyone's experience. Some Ukrainians are facing weeks of detention akin to prison. As one refugee who crossed Tijuana told NBC News, no one was expecting to be in jail for 18 days. No one was expecting this at all. Well, it's the same treatment faced every day by African, Central American, and other immigrants crossing into U.S. seeking refuge. So as President Biden vows to expedite entry for 100,000 Ukrainians, we're asking, what's up with this double standard? Joining me now to get into that is lecturer of Spanish language and Latin American studies at UC Riverside, Nicolai Ngistef Garcia, and Sama Sise, a birth and justice fellow at the Center for Constitutional Rights. So happy to have you both with me. Sise, I'm going to start with you, Ms. Sama Sise. Ukrainians are bumping up against the same treatment that African and Central American asylum seekers experience regularly. They, too, are fleeing wars, violence, dictatorships, gang warfare, and cartel terrorism. Why do you think, as a country, some people have more sympathy for one group and not the other?
Thank you. Yes, unfortunately, I think what we're seeing is that our immigration system has always been built on ideas of race and who belongs and who is deserving of certain treatment. And so while many Ukrainians who are coming to the Mexico-U.S. border are experiencing detention, are experiencing difficulties going through the asylum process, the fact is they're being allowed in, which is not the same for a lot of other immigrants who are coming from Central America, from African countries who are fleeing similar violence, right? And so I think, unfortunately, our immigration system has been based on race for the longest time. And therefore, the discretion that the Border Patrol agents are afforded when they see someone who is white, who is non-Spanish speaking, is this idea that maybe they're coming from actual places that need help or are facing actual violence, where we have been told in the media repeatedly that people coming from Central America and other countries are just trying to come in the U.S. for jobs and things like that, and they're not actually fleeing violence.
Yeah, and we can see with our own eyes what they're experiencing. I mean, even think about people in Haiti who experienced a devastating earthquake and political unrest in their own country. Nicolai, I was really struck by your great op-ed that you wrote in the LA Times this week. You have a very unique perspective on this, being your heritage is Central American and Ukrainian. I want you to take a listen to what Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas said this week when it comes to a double standard.
Is there a double standard here?
There is not.
We just heard from Manny Bojorquez at the border. He also met Roxana Ruiz Ramirez from Honduras. She's been waiting for 9 months to claim asylum, and that gang threats have put her life at risk, too. What do you say to migrants like Roxana?
What we say is do not take the dangerous journey. We are building an asylum system that has been dismantled. We are providing alternative pathways to seek relief under the laws of the United States.
So, Nicolai, first of all, migrants facing this kind of devastation, everyone, no matter who they are, what they look like, deserve our empathy and hospitality, I would argue. However, when I do hear the secretary say that, do not take the dangerous journey, I wonder how that would sound to Ukrainians right now facing what they're facing. And someone says, don't take the dangerous journey, stay there. And it's the same thing that these migrants coming from Central America are facing. Your take on this?
Exactly. I teach upper division Spanish writing courses at UC Riverside, and a lot of my students, they themselves cross the border. I have them write narratives in Spanish about their experiences or any experience that they lived. And a lot of them write about crossing the borders. They have family members who were undocumented. Some of them are dreamers. So for them, I asked them in my classes this past quarter if they saw any double standard. And a lot of them pointed out after the first weekend of reporting in the media across the world that they saw the double standard. And of course, which you mentioned earlier, this has been going on in Latin America, in Central America, in Honduras, in El Salvador, and Guatemala for decades. So the images that we saw in Bucha over the last week in Ukraine have been taking place in Guatemala. There's mass graves all throughout Central America. There's cartel violence in Mexico. Haitians are going through the same thing in terms of gang warfare in Haiti. People who have to go through have to suffer from earthquakes or hurricanes in Latin America are living in situations that are unlivable. So this has been going on for a long time. And of course, you can't tell people not to come when those situations are situations where they just can't live. So for me, it's very obvious there's a double standard. And I point to my students who actually, cross the border, they see it themselves. A quick point of clarification, Tiffany. I'm half Mexican, and my mother side of the family, my father's family is from Ukraine. So
thank you.
I'm from Central America.
Thank you. Thank you so much for correcting me on that. My apologies. So you just heard what he had to say, Sama. I want you to take a listen. There was an exchange this week with White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki talking about Texas Republican Governor Greg Abbott, who has made himself the buffoon face of immigration wars. Take a listen to this, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
Now that the Texas governor is saying that he's going to start busing border crossers to Washington, D.C., when they get here, are you guys going to help them find a place to stay and something for them to do?
Well, I'm not aware of what authority the governor would be doing that under. I think it's pretty clear this is a publicity stunt. His own office admits that a migrant would need to voluntarily be transported, and he can't compel them to because, again, enforcement of our country's immigration laws lies with the federal government, not a state.
I do want to point out that was, of course, the Fox News reporter asking Jen that question. But I'm curious your thoughts. How can the United States, you're an attorney who studied these issues. How can the United States make the immigration system on more equal footing across the board for everyone experiencing these travesties who, of course, deserve our empathy?
The United States has really turned our asylum system into one that focuses on deterring people from coming to the U.S. So I think what really needs to be done is for us to change that perspective. Rather than focusing on deterrent and trying to criminalize immigrants who continue to come to the border regardless of these policies, we need to focus on actually implementing policies that will ensure that people have actual access to the process. So the government has said that they're going to lift Title 42, and therefore that's what Abbott was talking about, right? He views this as a way for people to rush at the border, have access to resources that U.S. citizens don't. But in reality, as attorneys, we know what actually happens at the border is once people try to seek asylum, people who are trying to get humanitarian protection from the United States, they're jailed. They're jailed for long periods of time, and they're not afforded attorneys. They have to go in front of judges by themselves oftentimes to try and argue a case for a type of law that they really don't understand. And so the process is already stacked against refugees who are trying to seek protection in the U.S. So this policy that we're implementing where we're trying to say we're deterring people, don't come here, we know it's not working. So what needs to be done is to really look at the asylum process, which we are required to provide under international law to people who are fleeing violence, and think, how can we actually make this a robust process where people actually have a fair chance of seeking safety?